part of the record, and you're now recognized. Thank you again for joining us, Mr. Secretary. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairman Carper, Ranking Member Capito, members of the committee. I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify on the Department of Transportation's ongoing work to implement President Biden's historic bipartisan infrastructure law. And I'd like to begin by thanking you for everything you did to craft and to pass this urgently needed piece of legislation. It's a landmark that we believe will stand to the credit of this Congress and this administration alike. As members of the committee know well, America's infrastructure fell into a state of disrepair for decades, and the American people rightly demanded action. We had yet another blunt reminder of the urgency and need just last month in Pittsburgh with the collapse of the Fern Hollow Bridge. As I've traveled across the country, I have seen supply chains straining, bridges out of service, and critical infrastructure destroyed by increasingly frequent climate disasters. The need for major investment has long been clear, and now this president and this Congress have delivered the means to address that need. Through this law, we're now in the early stages of a generational modernization of our infrastructure that will serve to bolster our economic security and prosperity for decades to come. The investments now underway will strengthen our goods movement and supply chains, reduce costs for American consumers, make it easier and safer for people to get to where they need to be, help tackle the climate crisis, and create good-paying jobs building bridges, paving roads, electrifying buses, installing EV chargers, laying track, and so much more. At DOT, we're working to implement these investments according to the new law, with a focus on making our nation's roads safer, making our transportation systems cleaner, more accessible, and more resilient to climate impacts, and enabling all Americans to share in the benefits equitably. We began our work as soon as the President signed the new law. In the past 90 days, we have already put forward a total of $60 billion in authorized funding to states and communities, and we've opened applications for another $2 billion in discretionary grant programs. Our Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, announced the largest annual apportionment of highway funds in decades, more than $52 billion for states to repair and rebuild our roads, bridges, and highways, making them safer and more resilient. With regard to federal aid highway funding, I want to pause and emphasize the importance of the relationship between our department and our state partners, because I know that's been of particular interest to members of this committee. I want to make clear that we recognize and value the role of the states in deciding how to prioritize the use of formula dollars as laid out in the law. Different states and communities have different needs when it comes to transportation assets that have to be reconfigured and modernized, expanded and added, or retired and replaced as appropriate. And we look forward to our continued support of state transportation departments as they undertake this work. And I am proud to affirm the virtues of what so many states, from Alabama to Virginia to my home state of Indiana and many more, have been doing to focus on repairing the vital infrastructure we already have. That philosophy is something we at DOT share with state leaders across the country, Republicans and Democrats alike, who are working to repair, maintain, and modernize the roads, bridges, and other transportation infrastructure that their residents count on every day. Maintaining and improving our existing infrastructure is critical to building a better, cleaner, more modern transportation system. And now we can bring new resources and energy to this work. FHWA recently launched our new Bridge Formula program, single largest dedicated bridge investment since the creation of the interstate highway system, with more than $26 billion to repair and replace our bridges so we can avoid devastating collapses and closures like the one we saw recently. We've established a joint Office of Energy and Transportation with the Department of Energy, followed by our announcement of $5 billion in support for states as they draw up plans to build out what will become a national network of EV chargers, 500,000 strong by 2030. We've opened applications for some of our most significant grant programs with more funding than ever, thanks to the infrastructure law, including our RAISE, Port Infrastructure Development Program, and Airport Terminal Program, with more soon to come. We're working closely with state departments of transportation and other project sponsors to ensure they have the flexibility and support they need to deploy all these funds in ways that make sense for their communities while ensuring the expenditure of these funds meets our shared public policy goals and the high standards for the use of federal taxpayer dollars. All of us work to enact the infrastructure law for the same reason, because we know it will do so much to make life better for the American people. It will improve everyday life for the traveling public and anyone who counts on our supply chains. It will ease daily commutes and long-haul travel alike, and it will create jobs. We at the DOT look forward to continuing our work with all of you to bring the ambitious vision of the bipartisan infrastructure law to life across our country. I want to thank you again for inviting me to be here today, and I'm looking forward to taking your questions.